Welcome to the football podcast. I'm joined by Phil Withers, Dean Creasey and Aaron Irwin. We've got to 1st of July and teams are starting to sign players up, and Barton Town have been no exception. So Aaron, if you can give us a rundown of who's joined so far.
Right, so I'll give you the list. There's 12 of them. So we have Matt Plummer, Chaz Fisher, Robbie Start, Scott Matthews, Josh Batty, Craig Disley, Taryn Hare, Ben Hinchliffe, Josh Baker, Grant Tate, and Luke Hornsey.
So it's a good base from last season. Is that about 7 or 8 players from last season re-signed? It's good to see. Good to see Ben Hinchliffe. I thought was excellent last season, a real goal threat, and particularly Taryn Hare, who I thought did well. I liked him a lot when he was played at Ferriby in the National League, and he did well, I thought, for Barton. So it's looks to have the makings of a pretty decent squad.
Yeah, I'm going to say if Rob Watson wants to play 4-4-2, it's I won't say it picks itself because he's got a decent choice at the back, 5 at the back at the moment, 5 for midfield, and then Josh Batty, Ben Hinchliffe up front. But looking forward to seeing them playing together. We know Josh can score goals at a higher level. We know, Ben's a quality goal scorer as well. So that looks really promising with people like Craig Disley, Josh Baker and Noel Burdett trying to set things up for them. It could be good.
Yeah, it's good to see Craig Disley back. I thought he was starting to play really well when he got injured last season. Lots of experience as well there.
I think the shape of the squad just really, for me, epitomises Rob. I think a lot of youth, but a lot of experience. And I think, whatever level, football's decided in both boxes, whether it be in the Premier League or at Northern Counties level. And, I think one or two of the ones which stick out for me, is, the re-signing of Matt Plummer, I think's, a magnificent signing again for the club. His calmness, he's good on the ball, played at a higher level. But I think as well, in his 60-odd games, I think to chip in with 8 goals. And I think, at Northern Counties level, again, set pieces and stuff are massive. I think so to have people at the back who, can get on the end of things, in an attacking sense as well, I think it's going to be, massive for them. And, I think Chaz Fisher as well. And, I know a bit about Chaz. And again, somebody who, can get his foot in and his head in, but also, again, I think it epitomises the style of football probably Rob's going to want to play, where possible he's going to want to try and get it down and pass it. And I think it's important all through the team, you've got people who are comfortable on the football. And I think, Chaz and Matt certainly are. And, as you know, being a big Grimsby fan, there's no introduction needed about Craig Disley. I think in the engine room, he'll just, tick it over. And, young Josh Baker as well, who comes with a brilliant pedigree, I think played decent standard in the States and stuff. So, I think it's looking, really exciting times, to be fair.
What's your thoughts, Aaron?
Obviously, I was there on Wednesday night when they were signing all these players up, and just seeing them all together, it was quite encouraging. Like you said, we've retained most of the squad that came last season. Ben Hinchliffe up front, 19 goals last year. Him and Josh Batty are going to work wonders up front, I think. Taryn at the back, who's the new club captain for the season. So him at the back with Plummer and, people like Chaz. It's a great squad, I think. And Rob's just adding some extra finishing touches to make it even better.
Yeah, no, sorry, Phil, you go on.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a well-balanced squad. I say Matty Plummer, Taryn Hare in the centre of defence will be good, unless one of them moves out wide and Chaz Fisher goes into the centre. But Robbie Start charging down the touchline, he's going to help create goals. Just looking solid in the 3 sections of the team. Really, we're talking before podcast started, Aaron, about the only name we're waiting on is a goalkeeper.
Yeah,
musing on whether it could be a loan one again.
Yeah, obviously Sam Richards has gone Barton Town, which, best of luck to him. It's a good move for him, league higher. I don't doubt Rob has a few goalkeepers in his little black book that, he can tap up or bring in. Maybe it's whether it's loan or whether he can get one in permanently, I don't know, but I'm sure he's got a plan for that.
I think as well, Richard, I'm probably allowed to say this as a, somebody involved with the club and, a bit of an outsider, Rob's not an idiot. I think it's fair to say, the expectations should be high this year. I think they're expecting to, be competing. And in fairness, when you reel off some of these names, probably so they should be. And Rob won't forgive me for putting a bit of pressure on, I'm sure. But, at the end of the day now, Barton Town's a massive club at Northern Counties East level. And, the infrastructure and what the people do behind the scenes. And, I think the benchmark of Barton, you look what's going on just up the road at Cleethorpes. Why can't that be Barton Town in a couple of years? And I think, I think the club's got the right guy in Rob. Some fantastic players, the ground, the infrastructure, the supporters. And I think, last year, what Rob and Craig did, to stable the ship, will, stand them instead for this season. And, for me, I expect him to be challenging him there or thereabouts. And I apologise to the club if they don't like the pressure. But at the end of the day, when you're bringing in players like this, and to be fair, Josh Batty, Ben Hinchcliffe, they could play several levels higher, and everybody knows that. And that's just to name, two, isn't it? But again, as I said at the start, not wanting to hog your podcast, any levels of football, it's about both boxes. And you look at some, of the defensive players the football club's got, and then in the attacking third as a start, you would expect that there's a good chance of keeping clean sheets and you would expect to score goals. And then you look in the engine room, the experience of people like Craig Disley, Josh Baker, who, in fairness, is still probably learning his craft, but, he's going to learn from playing alongside people like Craig Disley, isn't he? And, so the balance looks good. And, I think like everybody now, I'm sure Rob's probably got, one or two things up his sleeve. I passed him the other day. He was in the town early in the morning, so no doubt he was probably meeting somebody. So there'll probably be something else off the press next week. But I think everybody just wants to get started now, don't they? And to be fair, it looks in good shape, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, so you've got to be optimistic, I think, because they had picked up, as you say, had a rocky start, then massively improved halfway through the season, and they were never going to push for promotion, having had such a bad start, but they were climbing the table and might have made a top 8, certainly would have made a top half finish. And when you consider most of the key players, if you like, have signed on again this season, you've got to be optimistic. If you can't be, then, what we're doing.
I think as well, I think the good thing is, and I've only had brief conversations with Rob, and, and I know Rob from, in fairness, Rob took a slightly different path to me and went in the professional game, but there's not a lot of difference in age. And, probably when me and Rob were young managers and young coaches, Rob went in a different direction to me, and it's almost his job now. But, Rob's building a football club. So, as well, I think the strength in depth is going to be there. The reserves, are looking to play in the same way. Liam's doing a fantastic job there. And I think with a young manager as well, who, works professionally in youth and academy football, if there's somebody in the reserves who is doing it, I think there's no doubt whatsoever that Rob will give them an opportunity. And I think that's massive too, isn't it? That there's that clear pathway, I think, and probably the first time for a long time, there's going to be a clear pathway for young players. If you perform and you're good enough, you'll get the opportunity. And if you can't get that opportunity when your first team manager, works professionally in youth academy football, you're never going to get one. And, I think that stands the club in good stead as well.
Yeah, I know it's going back a few years, but you make a good point there about being willing to bring the players through. When Cosy Basile was managing North Ferriby United reserves, he got desperately fed up at one point because he got some good players there and they just weren't getting anywhere near the first team. If new players were needed, they were being brought in as experienced players from other clubs. And Cosy was then beginning to have a struggle getting the best local players because the lads couldn't see any progress being made. If they could see lads who were already at the club getting into the first team and making some progress, then they were going to go in and play in the reserves for a few months. But that wasn't happening, and the lads were going to other clubs. So, it's vital that Liam's reserves get the opportunity in the first team as and when it occurs. And it will do. Injuries, suspensions.
Yeah. I think as somebody with, quite a lot of experience managing at reserve team level for sure, I think of course the players have got to be good enough. And I think that's something which, I speak quite a lot with Liam, and at the back end of the season, took a lot of the games in, and me and Liam speak quite a lot, and I think even from reserve team level, they're trying to attract the right calibre of player, and I think that's massive. I think towards the back end of last season, I think there were one or two, reserve team players, and certainly in the last 6-8 games where I was taking the reserve team games, one who springs to mind, young Kieran Salter, who I think's only 17, but quite rightly, these performances in the reserves got an opportunity and, sat on the bench. And sometimes it's not necessarily, at that age, whether you're actually getting minutes on the pitch with the first team. I think it's just about being involved in, in that environment and seeing the difference. And, I know Kieran enjoyed it. And, the last couple of games before lockdown, when he came back, to the reserves, I was, again at those 2 games, and, it kind of sometimes just gives, not just the individual in question, but the rest of the squad a boost, because you think to yourself, well, there is an opportunity. Because, again, as well, I think, and sorry to go on, but I think sometimes people misunderstand the role of reserve team football. And it's not just about results. It's about developing people and getting people ready. And if you can be, competitive along the way, which in fairness to Liam's guys, certainly, the games I saw, where I think they only won 1 out of 7. They could have probably won 6 of them. It's fine margins, but it's about how you do things and good habits and making sure that transition from reserve to first team football is as smooth as you can possibly make it. And if in the reserves you get it from back to front really quickly, but the first team want to get it down and play, it's difficult. So I think that's why it's so important that there's a blueprint. The club want to gear up in a way where they're playing very similar, get it down and pass it and play. And I think that creates the environment for the young players.
Are the reserves remained in the Humber Prem? Are they in the Humber Prem next season, the reserves?
Yeah, they are,
Yeah. So that's only sort of like 2 levels below, isn't it? So there's not a massive difference.
It's a tough league.
It is a big jump, isn't it, to the North East counties from the Humber Prem?
Yeah, I think in fairness, I think it's a massive jump for sure. But in the same token, it's such a big jump also from Humber Premier League 1 to the Premier Division of the Humber Prem. The difference between League 1 and the Humber Prem and the top division's massive. And, week in, week out, Humber Prem level, you come across ex-professionals, some of the best young players in the county who are not at Northern Counties level. So for me, and it's a personal opinion, it's a good level to cut your teeth, and, it's a good stepping stone, I think, from, youth football and, local league football. And, I think as you know, I'm quite passionate about, the reserves and, the part they play. And, I think they'll do well this year. And, Liam won't forgive me for saying that. When this goes out, my phone will be pinging. But, I think they'll do very, very well. And it's like, it's like Northern Counties in the sense that, it's proper football, isn't it? You turn up every week, and if you're not on it, you don't get a result. You know, anybody could beat anybody, and you know, it's such fine margins. But you know, as an outsider looking in, I'm quite excited this year because I think, you know, there's an opportunity for, you know, both teams to kick on, which I think will be fantastic reward for the people behind the scenes who, you know, at very difficult times, let's just, you know, remember this. There'll be clubs at Northern Counties level at the moment who don't sign a player because they don't know when you're going to start and when your next income's coming in and all that. So for me, it's a bit of a statement of intent, and hopefully, you know, when we do get going, you know, the people of the town will continue to throw the weight behind it, because it could have been so easy for the club to do what a lot of clubs have done and just sit tight and say, well, we got to wait. And they haven't done that, you know. I think Aaron said, was it 10 or 12, I think, which have been brought in. And I think for me, that just symbolises what the club's trying to do again this year.
Yeah, good point about hoping the town gets back behind the team, because attendance has increased a lot last year. What I have been pleased to see, though, and don't know how much Aaron's been instrumental in it, is we seem to be keeping all the sponsors on board.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's down to the chairman and a couple of other people behind the scenes. They bring the money in, they, you know, talk to the sponsors, bring the sponsors in. Obviously, I'm kept in the loop, so I know what to do on social media and that. We aren't losing many sponsors, impressively, which obviously thanks a lot to each and every one of them. You know, we're in a good place financially. Obviously, I won't go into detail, but we are safe. We are all right. We should be okay for, you know, the season coming. All being well. Obviously, touch wood, we don't have a second wave, which may affect things. I don't know, but we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah, well, we don't even know when the season will start, do we?
I think late September is the last one I had.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see if the FA keeps to what it said at the moment, is that steps 1 and 7, or steps 1 to 7, will all start at the same time, because National League, if it does start, is going to have to start at the same time as the Football League. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
I think as well on that, Phil, if I can just say, I think that, you know, for me, you know, I think something what is missing in some of these decision making, you know, particularly at NCL level and maybe a little bit further down, is I think an element of common sense, because, you know, with the greatest respect, you know, with gates of 80 to 100 possibly, you know, maybe a few more, I think it's much easier to possibly impose social distancing than it is at, say, a big national league club who maybe get gates of 2,000-3,000, you know. And, you know, I use an example, and, you know, I'm not, you know, for 1 minute trying to devalue the situation everybody still finds themselves in. But, you know, I've been, you know, as I said, alluded to earlier, in Barnsley today, stood in a queue, and I kid you not, in a car park in, you know, a store which will remain unnameless. There's 200-300 people milling about at their leisure. So I think there needs to be some consistency in this, and, you know, a consistent approach, of course. You know, fundamentally, we want to keep everybody safe. But I think at the moment, I think there are certain things, you know, we can do which don't make any sense. And, you know, there are certain things we can't do which maybe, you know, with a little bit of tweaking and things we maybe could. And, you know, I just hope that, you know, I think it's easy to, you know, use one solution to fit all, but I don't think that is the case, you know, in the same way as, you know, at the highest level in football. You know, I think now, having spoke to a few people and even people involved, you know, at professional clubs and stuff, you know, they feel that, you know, with gates of, you know, 2,000 to 4,000, 5,000, with grounds which are 8,000 to 10,000, that they probably safely, you know, could stage a football match. And, you know, maybe they could. And, you know, at the moment, I just think, you know, we're trying to have one model which fits all, and I'm not necessarily sure that should be the case, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think the biggest issue really is the number of people actually coming in to watch the game at NCL level. Like you say, most clubs are looking at around the 100 mark, one or two up at 200, most around the 100 mark. I think the issue more than anything else is things like toilets.
Yeah.
And bar and catering. We're fortunate at Barton that you can serve from on the food side, you can serve through the hatch and serve outside. People don't need to go inside at all, so you can easily queue just as you normally would. People want to go in and get a pint. I suppose that's relatively easy manageable. Just stick the now famous circles on the ground and say you've got to stay on that so it's your turn to go. So that's possibly manageable. But it's things like the toilets, because of course you want a toilet, half your fans might want to go in that 10 minutes at half time. And it's not possible.
No, that's right.
It never is anyway, never mind the current circumstances.
But I think that's a valid point, that I think, that in fairness, a lot of the time, it doesn't matter where you go, whether it be NCL level or pro level or whatever, you can't access the toilets when you want to go anyway. So I think this is what I'm saying about having just a, touch of realism, on the situation, because there are lots of things, to be fair, that, you potentially would, like to do, which, to be fair, is almost restricted anyway, because of some, I know they're quite fortunate about with the facilities, but, the greatest respect, some of the places you go, you wouldn't want to go to the toilet anyway, would you? So, and I'm not, that's just, no, but that is just the reality of the situation. Yeah. And I think what they have to do, and, Aaron may know more about this, but, I just hope that the powers what be, are liaising properly with, the clubs. Because ultimately at that level, and I think everyone would agree with this comment, ultimately at that level, it's the clubs what know what they can and can't do. Not somebody sat in an ivory tower somewhere who probably doesn't even know where Barton is, or Hemsworth Miners' welfare is, and I think, for me, as long as the clubs, it should be the clubs now who, taking the lead and, saying this is what we can and can't do. These are the solutions. Because I think ultimately, a lot of people might disagree with my view on this, but I'm sorry, if there's certain things we can do in this world now, I think people can stage a game of football at that level. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, so we know we don't want to get political, but just looking at, some of the regulations, it's crazy. Grandson's birthday tomorrow. We can walk round to the house. They live within walking distance. We can walk round to the house. We've got to stand in the garden or sit in the garden. Can't go in the house legally, officially. It's just absolutely crazy. But I can go with 6 mates. If we had 6 mates, I could go with 6 mates to the pub. You just think, where is the logic to it? It's it escapes me, some of it.
I think as well, I think you're 1,000,000% right. And as you say, you predominantly, and I accept there's visiting clubs and all that kind of stuff, but, certainly with regards to your teammates and stuff, you're going to be coming in contact with people and stuff, and as you say, I alluded to earlier, I might have my first easing of lockdown beverage this evening at a place which I won't name, but I might have named it earlier actually, but that wasn't a plug, that wasn't a marketing plug. But, I could be in there tonight and there could be 35 people in there who I don't know at all. And I just think there needs to be some consistency. And I suppose,
you're a cricket fan, Dean, and apparently from a couple of days ago, recreational cricket was too dangerous to be allowed to play. It's now, if I've read it right, you can now start playing it next Saturday. How are they going to deal with the catering issue? Because that was one of the problems they had with letting recreational cricket go on, apart from players tossing the ball to each other.
I didn't know you were going to ask me that one. I know the professor. No. The answer
obviously relates to the football clubs. How do you go about the catering, hospitality for sponsors, visiting officials, post-match hospitality for the visiting team?
I think absolutely.
I think it's a problem. You don't do it. You can play foot. You don't necessarily. I know it's good to have, but it's not. You can play a football match, can't you, without your hospitality? People can still come to the game.
I think my understanding from the cricket point of view at the moment, and this might not be 100% accurate, but certainly the last conversation I had with people at the cricket club was, very much, we're hoping in the next week or two to be able to play. Which obviously there's going to be certain restrictions on the field with regards to, you can't lick the ball or put saliva on the ball and stuff. And I think initially, the initial games and stuff will take place with the request that you'll basically turn up ready, and as soon as you finish, we'll leave. Now, that is a start for sure. But I think as well, it's again, what you're looking for is some element of consistency regarding that. So if you can turn up and play cricket, but you can't, partake in the hospitality or be involved in the bar after, it makes no sense that you could then technically jump in your car and drive up the road and do that. So again, I think that's something which needs to obviously be looked at. But again, it's very difficult, isn't it? Where I've probably been as opinionated as any, so you probably won't invite me back. You'll probably get shut down, probably. but, I think at the end of the day, I think we all have to acknowledge it's a really difficult situation. And I think one thing, we all share is, whether it be football, cricket, going to see your family, going to your local quiz night or whatever, is, we all like to do the things we enjoy, don't we? And, we sooner rather than later, we want to be able to, return to some kind of normality. But what I must say is, of course, although I'm very forceful in my views, of course, as always, safety and stuff has to be, at the paramount, of the decisions people make. And all you can do is, entrust the experts, can't you? And follow the guidelines and, see where it takes us.
Yeah, and really fingers crossed it can get going in September. It was good to see the league announce that all 40 clubs are due to take part this next season, and nobody's dropped out yet, so that's good to see.
Let's hope it stays that way. FC Oswestry went under yesterday.
Yeah.
But, there's probably more to that than meets the eye because of the link they have with TNS.
And I think Aaron makes a really, really good point. And I think, although Barton Town, for example, through a lot of work behind the scenes, are in a very fortunate position with, the sponsors and, all that kind of stuff. But, it will be worth saying that, at Northern Counties level, there'll be clubs who probably are in very precarious positions at the moment, who are maybe not as fortunate. So I think certainly, the part, more than ever, at this moment in time, the part sponsors and stuff are playing, is massive, because I think what you have to appreciate as well is these sponsors and stuff who, are still meeting their commitments and writing their checks and dipping their hand in the pocket. They've had the same impact as everybody else, loss of income and all that kind of stuff. So, I think, not just Barton, but I think a lot of clubs, and we're specifically looking at, Northern Counties, but, I think more than ever are indebted to their sponsors and the backers. And as you say, at the minute be in a situation where, we've not lost anybody, is probably at this moment in time solely down to, the sponsors and the backers who are, honouring their commitments. Because as you say, none of these places have had any money coming in, have they, at all?
That's right, yeah.
One of the issues we've not addressed, but could happen as we get closer to the season, is that some clubs might find themselves short of people behind the scenes to actually run the club without throwing a lot of work on others. We all know that many of the volunteers at clubs are retired people. Because of their age, that puts them at risk from COVID-19, and whether or not they'll want to go back or not. I think, I've got to look to my health, and you can only guess at what might happen, because it's probably going to be another 2 months before the season starts at the earliest, and all sorts of things could have changed by then. We could be in lockdown, or we could be down to, virtually no infections each day and almost nil deaths. We just don't know. It's one extreme or the other.
Well, we're starting to run out of time here, so we'll wrap things up. But I think it's certainly exciting to see who Barton have got through the door so far, and let's hope things do get underway on Saturday. And it's looking promising.
It certainly is. looking forward to it. Anyway, stay safe, guys, and to all those who are listening when the podcast goes out.
And sorry for being controversial.
Someone has to be.
Well, I probably won't get invited back again, so there you go.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah,
you can tell us how the cricket's working next time.
Yeah, I'll go away and plan that for you.
It will have some bearing on how clubs at football operates. Don't need to be in quite the same way because of the nature of the game, but still be interesting. Okay then, guys. See you soon.
Thanks.
Take care. See you later.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.